Hello, thanks for joining me for this presentation on the Dairy Business Innovation Initiatives Grant. My name is Shep Stearns. I'm a value-added dairy extension specialist at the University of Tennessee in the Animal Science Department. This grant program is my main area of focus in my job, so it's my responsibility to help ensure that if you'd like to apply to this grant program, that you're able to submit the highest quality grant possible and hopefully get a project funded for your dairy business. So we're going to do this David Letterman style. We're going to go down a list of the top 10 questions that we get about the DBII grant and hopefully cover a lot of territory that is relevant to you as you look at this grant program. And evaluate whether or not you would like to submit an application to us. So, of course, the first question to answer is, what is DBII? So this is a program that's supported by the USDA Agricultural Marketing Service. And in this phase of funding, we have $6 million that's evenly divided between educational efforts and technical support on the one hand, and then on the other hand, dairy business subawards. So that's hopefully what you're interested in viewing this presentation. So those subawards will allow you to apply for funding in order to complete projects that will advance your value-added dairy business in some way. So the goal of this program is to support value-added dairy production specifically in the southeastern states of North Carolina, Kentucky, and Tennessee. We also have sister sites that have received this funding through the USDA in the Midwest and Northeast. So the Center for Dairy Research in Wisconsin was one of the recipients, and the Agency of Agriculture in Vermont was another. And so all of these programs are directed towards supporting dairy businesses that manufacture their milk supply into some kind of value-added product. So the second question to ask is, what's the purpose of the DBII program? So really basically, the purpose of the program is to diversify and modernize the dairy product markets in each of these regional hubs. And specifically, of course, we're talking about the Southeast. And to promote business development and to diversify farmer income in order to improve the viability of the dairy industry in the Southeast region. So the purpose of the subaward program is to spur innovation all through the supply chain, to create new products, to create new uses for milk, to upgrade facilities, help farmers and processors purchase specialized equipment that maybe they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise, and to develop products and marketing strategies that help to keep dairy farmers and dairy processors in business. The next question to answer is, who is eligible to apply for the current round of funding in the DBII? So, as I mentioned before, in the current round, we're focusing on Tennessee, Kentucky, and North Carolina only. So if you're in one of those states and you operate either a permitted dairy farm or a permitted dairy processing facility, then you're eligible to submit an application for the current round of funding. You could also be both a dairy farm and a dairy processing facility. So if you're a producer processor, of course, you're also eligible. If you are not permitted in either of those two categories, you could still apply if you plan to become permitted over the course of the grant period, which is 1 year long. So you would just have to stipulate in your summary and in your work plan when you were planning to become permitted and how, what contact you've had so far with regulatory agencies things like that. And of course, the last stipulation is that there's only one application allowed per dairy business per round of funding. So during this call in particular, you can only submit one application. Now, this one might seem kind of basic to some of you, but I think it's always good to go through this walkthrough. So how do I access and submit the grant? So the first thing you're going to want to do, and you can go into the accompanying document with this presentation that just has the slides, and click on this link rather than trying to copy it all out while you're listening. But you go to that link at the top, and I really need to urge you to read the grant application in full, so that you know whether you're eligible, you know whether the project that you're interested in doing is one that we can fund. Read it all in full, and then once you've done that, download and save the application to your computer. Don't work on it just through the website. Download it and save it to your computer, and then work in the document itself. And if you're more comfortable in working in Word, or you have some sort of verbiage saved in a Word document that you'd like to use, you can copy and paste into the grant PDF. But make sure to save as you go so that you don't lose your work. And then once you're all finished and you have your document well vetted and you're proud of your grant application, then you can use the submit button that's embedded in the document itself to send it to me. If that submission button isn't supported by your computer and the suite of software that you have, you can also just send it directly to me, and my email is listed at the bottom. What costs can and cannot be covered by the grant? So this is a really important question. This might be the most important question in some ways, because we don't want you to apply for something and spend all of your time filling out the application when we just can't fund that. So the first thing to understand is that this is a reimbursement program. So that means you need our approval, whether it's equipment or services from a marketing consultant or whatever. You need our approval first before you make the purchase, in order to get reimbursed for that element of your project. So we've taken the time in depth and in detail to answer really precisely what's allowable and unallowable in the DBII for the subawards. So I would really urge you to take the time, follow the link at the top of the page, and look at the document that I've screenshotted and included here, and read it in its entirety, and make yourself really familiar with the allowable and unallowable expenses of the DBII before you create your application. Now, with that being said, I will go over some examples of the allowable costs under the DBII. So we can pay for you to hire an outside consultant to conduct a feasibility study. So for instance, if you operate a dairy farm and you're not currently processing your milk supply into value-added products, then the DBII can pay for you to hire a consultant to conduct this study and help you determine whether or not that's a viable business venture for you. In the same vein, we can pay for a consultant to help you develop a business plan. We can also pay for services related to developing a marketing plan. But the important caveat to any marketing costs that you include in your project is that the marketing plan or the marketing costs have to be related to promoting a particular product. They cannot be related to promoting your business in general. And the reason for that is that the USDA is not allowed to promote one business over another. It can't show favoritism. So again, you can promote, let's say you were making a cappuccino milk, a cappuccino flavored milk. You could promote your cappuccino milk, but you can't promote your business overall. So related to that, we can pay for you to try out a limited run of a product in a new size or in a new flavor. Or, even if you wanted to, let's say, start making a totally different product that you haven't tried yet. We can pay for the packaging to get that started. And we can pay for supplies in order to get that test product started for you. But again, we can't pay for marketing for your business in general. And the last bullet point here that is included under allowable costs is specialized equipment, which is directly related to processing milk into a value-added product. So it has to be very particular to a use in a processing capacity. It has to be something like a cream separator or a homogenizer, a cheese draining table. Those would all be allowable. Air conditioning system for your entire dairy facility, that would not be allowable. A computer for your office, that is too general, that wouldn't count under the category of specialized equipment. So here's the really disappointing part. So these are the unallowable cost examples. So we can't pay for real estate purchases. We can't pay for you to buy more cropland. We cannot pay for you to build a building. We can't repay loans or mortgages. We can't pay your legal fees. We cannot pay for lobbying or fundraising for political activities. There is a caveat. We can pay for you to hire a lawyer in order to create, for instance, an LLC or another business structure for your dairy business. We can't pay for rent beyond a 12-month period for a building or a vehicle. However, if you were wanting to try out direct store delivery, we could pay for 12 months of rent for a refrigerated truck, for instance. And we could pay for 12 months of rent for a storefront, for instance, if you wanted to try out having a retail store. So there are a lot of things that we can't pay for, and even with some of the things that we cannot pay for, there are caveats and exceptions. So again, it is a little bit complicated, and that's why it's so important, again, to go back and read that allowable and unallowable document that there's a link to earlier in the presentation. Another question that people ask us is basically, is this grant program all or nothing? Could my grant be partially funded? And the answer to that is yes. So there are three possibilities when you submit a SDBII subaward grant application. You could be rejected in full, you could be funded in full, or you could be funded in part. And the reasons why you might be partially funded are if some of the items that you included in your project are not really considered appropriate or realistic by the review committee. And in that case, maybe your work plan just doesn't really adhere to a 12-month period. It doesn't seem feasible that you would complete all of this work within that grant period. Or potentially we will receive more viable applications than we have money to fund. And in that case, the review committee may look towards funding some of the projects in part in order to spread the funding out a little bit more and to meet the needs of more dairy businesses in the region. So if you're still with us at this point, you may be asking yourself, how much funding can I actually apply for under the DBII? So in this round of funding, the absolute maximum that you can apply for is $500,000. And I don't know about you, but that's a lot of money to me. So if you're applying for a higher dollar amount, if you're applying for anything over $150,000, then we have a couple of extra stipulations that you'll need to meet in your application. So number one, you'll absolutely have to provide a business plan. And that business plan will have to cover at least 3 years. And number two, you'll have to show an impact with your project that shows that your business is having a regional impact and is working with multiple farms, is having a multiple farm impact. And some ways that you could demonstrate that is if you're purchasing in milk from farms in your region and paying a bit of a premium, or if you are offering co-packing services to other dairy businesses in your region. A general rule of thumb that you should keep in mind, whatever amount that you're applying for, is that the scale of your project should be appropriate to the scale of your business. So you need to keep in mind the fact that your project is going to have to be completed in a 1-year period after you're accepted. So if you can't demonstrate that the deliverables in your work plan are realistically going to be completed within that 1-year time period, then your application isn't going to have a really great chance of getting accepted. So you need to scale that project to something that the review committee is going to have a high level of confidence that you have the capacity to complete within that time period. The next question to ask is, how does this grant get scored? How do I get my grade on the grant application that I'm going to be submitting? So you can look at the entire scoring sheet, the entire scoring criteria that the review committee is going to be using to assess each and every grant that gets submitted for this round of funding. And it's included in the application itself, but you're going to need to go beyond the part that you fill out in order to find it. You're going to need to go below the submit button, check out the frequently asked questions, and look at the scoring criteria. And that's going to give you a really good idea of what you need to do and what you need to prioritize as you're working through this application. Now let's go over the scoring criteria for the DBII grant. The grant is going to be scored out of a possible 100 points, and your score is going to be derived from the following categories. So first, the grant application itself. Is it clear? Is it well organized? 2, goal alignment. So is the project that you're proposing actually in line with the goals of the DBII program? 3, your project summary. So you're going to give a detailed but concise description of the project that you are planning to complete, your business, and how this project is going to move your business forward and improve its viability. The work plan. So your work plan is going to be a timeline of the deliverables that you're going to complete as part of your project. So in other words, you're going to include what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, what the tasks are that you'll actually carry out to complete your project. And next, your business plan. So, like I said earlier, if you're applying for over $150,000, you're going to need to include a business plan that spans at least 3 years. Now, if you're applying for less than $150,000, you're going to state that you don't have a business plan if you're not including one, and you're going to describe your process for how you're going to develop one in the future, because it's important for every viable business to have a business plan. Next, your budget. So your budget is a really important area. The review committee is going to want to see realistic costs for the items that you are proposing that you're going to purchase in your project. So if you're applying for any individual item that costs more than $10,000, they're going to want to see 3 quotes from vendors. And if you aren't able to secure 3 quotes, as much as you tried, you just can't get 3 people to give you a quote on this item or these services, then you're going to submit a supporting document that just briefly explains that and describes a little bit the efforts that you made to secure 3 quotes for that item. And finally, there's a little bit of a miscellaneous category, which is other considerations. So that would be something that adds some impact to your grant. So, for instance, having a multi-farm impact would be an area where you could pick up a few extra points. Okay, what is the process for final review of the grants? So final applications are due by October 1st. So the clock is ticking. It's important to develop your application and revise your application if you intend to submit one by that deadline. Once all of the applications are submitted, a review committee that's composed of industry experts from North Carolina, Tennessee, and Kentucky will meet and assign each grant a score out of 100 points. So that review committee is going to remain anonymous in order to help ensure their impartiality, to help ensure that nobody tries to get in touch with them and get preferential treatment or anything like that. So once the committee meets, which will happen 60 days after the application period closes on October 1st, we should know by the end of the year what applications were accepted and which ones weren't. And notification will go out to everybody to let them know what the result was. If you are accepted, you will need to provide a progress report within 12 months after you're approved for the grant, and then a final report by August 31st of 2023. And finally, we have who can answer questions and help me improve my proposal before I submit it. So the answer to that question is the folks that are right here on this slide. So as I said in the beginning, my name is Shep Stearns. I'm the main contact in Tennessee. That's my cell phone number. Feel free to give me a call anytime, send me a text message, explain who you are, if that's the route you choose to go. Send me an email. Do whatever you need to do in order to get in touch with me. If you have a question or if you would like for somebody to look at a draft of your proposal. I'm not going to be on the review committee. None of the state contacts, the people that are on this slide, will be on the review committee for the final submissions. And that means that we can help you you know, more or less anything short of writing it for you, in order to get you to submit the best application possible. So be sure to utilize us as a resource. So next, Dr. Liz Eckelkamp is my boss on the DBII. If you send me an email, make sure to CC Liz as well. For Kentucky, Jennifer Hickerson from KDDC. You can see her contact information here as well. And in North Carolina, Brittany Whitmire and Dr. Stephanie Ward are your contacts. So again, be sure to make use of us. Use the time allotted. Get as many eyes as possible on your grant application, whether it's your local extension agent, a member of your family, anybody that you trust who has solid writing abilities, professional writing abilities, knows a lot about the industry. Develop your proposal and get feedback and revise. That is, the best thing that I can tell you as far as the formulas for success in submitting a good grant application. And so, all of us who are a member of the DBII team, we want you to succeed. We want your grant proposal to be the highest quality possible, and your project to hopefully get approved, and make a really big impact on your dairy business. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. Just keep in mind, we're humans and we work at a human pace. So give us, if you need feedback, give us time to take a look, and allot enough time for yourself as well, to be able to implement any comments that you might get from us. So don't send a really rough draft 2 days before the submission date and expect that we're going to get you comments back in time for you to be able to implement them. But thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation. I hope you found it useful, and get in touch with me if you have any further questions. Again, thank you so much. Bye.